Well, again, for those of you who joined after I said welcome, a big welcome to everybody. Really excited for you all to join and really excited to talk about the first ever digital co-op, which we launched just about a year ago and have seen some really tremendous results. So we have a handful of slides to go through with you all. Feel free to ask questions throughout, and then we can hold time at the end for a Q&A. But to start, I'll do a handful of introductions. So I can kick off and say that I am Maureen McNally. I work here at Ann Lewis Strategies, obviously, and the executive vice president, and really help to oversee a lot of our nonprofit practice, ensuring that we are creating the solutions and strategies for our nonprofits to achieve their goals. And with that, I can pass it over to my colleague, Michael.
I'm Michael Milton, the Chief Product Officer at Ann Lewis Strategies, and I and my team oversee the Advantage AI product. And with that, I'll pass it over to Alex.
Yeah, hey folks, my name is Alex Stein. I'm a vice president here at Ann Lewis, and I work with a lot of our clients and organizations to help them grow their programs through this incredible and exciting product. So with that, Maureen, I think we should get rolling.
Perfect. So we can jump to the next slide here and really talk about the origins of co-op. So not just what we're doing here and not just what Advantage AI is, but really how did co-ops get started? For some background on myself, I have worked both for agencies as well as in-house for nonprofits, including Special Olympics and a few other large ones. So what I have seen over the course of my career is that offline co-ops are really an area where people are able to quickly go to them and acquire new names and see tremendous returns, mostly financially from these. And so it's something that I've always seen from the digital world looking into the offline world, but it's never really been something that has been accessible online. And so when we look at the offline co-ops, when we look at how they got started, it certainly was a compilation of a ton of data. It was easy lead acquisition, as we've noted here, and it was accurate modeling. And so those three things are things that we've carried into the online world, which we'll get into in a few minutes. Of course, the downside to an offline co-op is really just the ability to track some of the data. We know in the offline world, you can know that you mailed somebody and you can know if you got something back, which hopefully is a check or a form with your credit card, but you don't know if they opened it. You don't know if they forwarded it to a friend or handed it off to somebody. You don't know who in the household may have seen it. And so there is a lack of data in the offline co-op world that we are also trying to solve when we talk about the online co-op. And of course, in the offline co-op, when you acquire names, you don't always own both prospects and donors. A lot of them have different rules, and sometimes you just own the donors. And so really trying to take a look at what existed in the offline world as far as the co-op goes, learn from it, and create something online for all of us to utilize. So the value of a co-op, really, when we look at it offline or online, especially for nonprofits, is that it's very low cost. The idea here is that we have a low cost to entry and making sure that everybody can utilize it. But of course, a high return, which is something that we're all looking for across a variety of channels. We really wanted to utilize the data, ensuring that we're able to target the right people. Of course, going back to more dollars for the mission to focus on their related efforts. And then, of course, acquiring the right people. It's really important if you're pulling in new people, whether it be from a co-op or any other acquisition channel and source, that you're bringing in the right people that are interested in your organization, interested in your mission, and then hopefully able to convert to a donor in a very short amount of time. And then, of course, the value of a co-op and expanding your audience through a co-op is ensuring that you're deepening the relationships and expanding the donor population for all nonprofits, because you are coming together in a co-op. Just as it is important to talk about the value of a co-op to an organization, we think it's really important to talk about the value of a co-op to a donor. At the end of the day, it's really about their experience. And so talking through what they're going through and what they might experience is really important. And I think the really big value here is that utilizing the wealth of data ensures that the right individual is paired up with the right nonprofit or right organization. And so this ensures that from the donor point of view, if I'm very interested in one cause, I might be then moved into other organizations that align in that cause. And so it allows for it to be a really seamless and really sophisticated user experience as far as where I might begin to receive email communications from. So when we looked at the offline co-op world and knew that it was so successful and wanted to figure out how to move it online, we also wanted to think through what are the main points that we needed to ensure we were able to achieve. So definitely wanted to keep the cost low, as I've mentioned a few times here. Drive a strong return on the spend. So no matter what you spend, we want to ensure that you're able to drive a strong return and also protect the net revenue. And again, acquiring the right people. We know how important deliverability is. We know how important audience growth is within the right areas. And so making sure that we were using all of the data that exists to ensure that the right people were being acquired by the right audience and the right organization was really important. So with that, we can talk through the solution to some of this, and I can pass it over to my team to talk through Advantage AI.
Great, I can jump in here. And Alessandra, we can go to perfect. We can go to this slide. And so, as Maureen said, this is the first ever digital co-op, right? And we're taking this lead generation online. And our North Star, right? Something that we've seen over the last nearly a year is that we're seeing fast and reliable return, and that investment is efficient and scalable. And so on the next slide, we kind of talk a little bit how this whole thing works, right? And so I'm going to read this and then kind of break this down. Digital exhaust data tells us a nuanced story about what donors want. It's not just about the gifts, it's about every interaction. So to start, when we say exhaust data, I'm sorry, Alessandra, if we can go back to the previous slide, thank you. When we say digital exhaust data, what we mean is opens, clicks, sent from every supporter on your file, right? And so it's not just who X person or Y person donated to. It's significantly more than that. And one of the frames that I like to use a lot when talking to folks about this product is if we're thinking about Facebook, right? What we're doing is we're combining some of the best components of Facebook, the sophistication there, with the ease of a fixed cost platform, a petition-based platform in some cases. And so we're merging these two worlds to allow organizations to grow at scale and make this a really efficient and simple process. On the next slide, here are a couple of stats about what we have, and then Michael will talk about the results. First of all, we have nearly 50 members. This is a blind co-op, and so we are not allowed to say who is in the co-op and who is not in the co-op. However, we have 70 million email addresses. That's right, 70 million email addresses at our disposal. And that equates to 40 terabytes of data. I'm going to be honest here, terabyte seems like a lot, and I know that it is. And this is all in an effort to say that we're using as much data as we can gather to have another level of intentionality when providing new to list supporters for organizations. This next point here is about we only provide organizations with folks who are 30-day actives. And I think this is incredibly important because we're screening folks to ensure that we're protecting your deliverability, and we're ensuring that we're meeting organizations at the moment they need to grow their program. All of these folks are active, are recently active, whether it's open, donated, clicked, or taken an action. And that translates into this return that we've seen across the board of 100% back in 3 to 6 months. And so, as Maureen mentioned, this is fixed cost at a low rate with the sophistication and with that muscularity of Facebook. So with that, we can move on to the results and what we've seen. And Michael, I'll turn it to you.
Great, thank you. So I'll talk about the results for our acquisition lead product, as well as a product that we just launched around reactivation, as well as what we're looking at for the roadmap for products going ahead based on the co-op. So when it comes to acquisition emails, what we're looking at most acutely is what is the timeline to break even, and how do we measure, return on ad spend across the cohorts that we delivered. And so what you see on this chart is, cumulative return over time for half a dozen, different cohorts from different clients. And essentially on the x-axis, you see the days starting at day 0, from which the cohort of acquisition leads was delivered. And on the y-axis, you can see the cumulative return that was generated over time, with a dotted line being what the break-even point was for that individual client. And we can see that there is variation for from client to client in terms of break-even, but a majority of the clients that we've deployed to have broken even after 30 days. And certainly when we're thinking of what return needs to look like for clients generally, usually if somebody is in a 100% return in a 12-month time frame, they're happy. But we can obviously generate return much quicker, at least in the clients that we have deployed so far, which is pretty exciting. And of course, the reason behind that is the co-op data itself enables us to know who is active, who is taking action on email, and the models enable us to identify who are the individuals who are most likely to take action for the clients for whom the names are new. So these two sources of power are how we've been able to see these kinds of results. We'll take a different visualization on the next slide. We took for 3 different clients for whom we have the data, the same chart that shows return, although it's measured in ROAS here, as opposed to ROI, but it's the same thing, with the dotted line being the break-even point. And for these, we're comparing Advantage AI leads to Facebook leads. We can see the pattern that we see when we compare against Facebook, which is the dominant competitive source of leads for donation, is that Facebook starts out usually at a higher ROI, as is indicated by the fact that the user flow through Facebook usually sends people directly or pretty close to directly to a donation page to elicit an immediate donation. While the slope of the curve is sharper for Advantage AI, which is to say that the rate at which ROI is accrued is higher for Advantage AI. And so in these cases, in the top 2 cases, we can see the ROI of Advantage AI passing Facebook from several tens to 100 days in. And we can see on the bottom chart that there's an upward trajectory of Advantage AI that suggests that it will surpass Facebook probably at day 125 or something like that. So this is a sort of way of comparing Advantage AI to the dominant player in online acquisition. When we're trying to understand the performance of the product and make sure that we're tuning it to get the maximum impact for members of the co-op, we're looking at other sources as well. Moving on to the next slide. So traditionally or typically across our clients, we've seen a 46% ROI in just 2 weeks. These are pretty outstanding and results, and I think it just stems from the power of the co-op and the recency of that behavioral exhaust that we're ingesting. And what's more, looking at other metrics in terms of open rates, unsub rates, and so forth, beyond just the core metric of donation, those metrics have been extremely favorable as well. Next slide, please. I'd like to share another product that we are currently in a soft launch phase phase 4, which is our reactivation modeling. And so it's very common for organizations to have a large number, if not the majority of their leads in their CRM databases being inactive. So maybe you acquired someone at a certain point in time and they stopped opening email after 30 or 60 days, and you put them on an inactive list, and then years later it would be common to see the inactive list being double or 10 times the size of the active list. And so the question that we were solving with this product is can we leverage the co-op to reactivate leads that have fallen into that inactive category. And so the approach that one would traditionally take to try to get one's inactives reactivated might be to do a simple screen, like looking at people who are donors whose last open was in the 90 to 180 day range, or something along those lines, or maybe sampling your inactive universe to try to figure out if you can shake any active folks out of that list. What the co-op informed reactivation does is it actually enables us to identify inactive leads on your list that are active on other lists. And that is data that isn't traditionally available to you when you're trying to find those leads that you have acquired at one point in the past but have lost for whatever reason. And so we can see for the reactivation product, the ROAS has quite similarly on the client that we're depicting here been nearly immediate, because these are folks who know you and who took action in the past and are known to be active within the recent history. These folks are like very highly qualified. The question is, can you find them in the absence of tooling like this? And hopefully this helps on the margin. And finally, onto the next slide. I'd like to talk a little bit about other models that we have on the roadmap. Because we have such a extraordinary data source, there's much more that we can do with it beyond acquisition and reactivation. One of the things that we're looking at is building models around giving tiers. And for nonprofits in particular, that usually means looking for sustainer donors, individuals who are likely to convert to the sustainer category, as well as mid-level donors. But we're also looking at major gift donors, donors who have the potential for upgrade, donors who have the potential for lapse, and so forth. So it's one of our objectives is to sort of enumerate all of these sort of questions that marketers traditionally have, and figure out if there's ways that we can leverage the co-op to answer them. In terms of time-specific donors, the behavioral data that we have enables us to ask questions like, is there a certain time of the day or a certain day of the week that people should have in mind when marketing to individuals, as well as are individuals likely to take action during major moments such as emergencies, moments in the media, and obviously Giving Tuesday and end of the year. And so to have flags that indicate folks who are sort of likely to take action at those moments could be a valuable tool in the toolbox. And then finally, deliverability, because the co-op provides a view into inboxing across dozens of organizations. The propensity of having a successful inboxing experience is something that we would like our co-op members to have more of. The screens that we have traditionally in CRMs to make sure that inboxing is done appropriately usually have to do with recency around last open and last donation date, but we think that we can do vastly better at making sure that the people who want to hear from you, and the people who don't, do not.